virtual team performance. I did a video yesterday and some of it didn't come out well. And this is the first time I am live on LinkedIn Live. So hopefully everything's going out correctly. Let me just check my setup. It looks like it is. So I'm happy to be here on LinkedIn. And I just wanted to give some real value out there. And if you get value out of the 5 components to virtual team performance, then I also have a pre-release offer for you about a course on just exactly this that I'm doing next week. So I'm giving everybody that wants to join a 75% discount on it just to get some people going through it. But right now what I want to do is talk about the 5 components of virtual team performance. And yesterday I did a video and I tried to share my screen and half of it came out blank. So you know what? Today I am going old school and we are going on the whiteboard. So leading virtual teams. The number one component to this, and if you watch what I do, you'll know this, is that the first component to leading successful virtual teams is mindset. And when I talk about mindset, that's your mindset as a leader. Because, to me, leadership is leadership, but you have to make changes depending on where and how you're leading. It's sort of like marketing's marketing and sales is sales. But if you're marketing online as opposed to on commercials or whatever it is, you have to change your messaging. You have to change how things work. It's the same with leadership. When you're leading and managing a virtual team, your mindset has to shift because obviously you're not having the face-to-face communications that you've had before. You can't do management by walking around. You can't sometimes get that automatic feeling that sometimes you get when you connect to people. Am I really, really bright? Well, we'll do the best we can. I think you're getting the information here. So your mindset has to shift as a leader. And so everything that all the benefits you got out of working in the office, you have to shift your mindset. You have to shift how you run meetings. You have to shift how you communicate to make it accessible online. And there's so many subtle shifts that you really have to go through. But I can tell you, as somebody who's worked remotely for over 20 years and ran 3 companies, who founded 3 companies that were all virtual, and one was hybrid and the other was virtual. Actually, one I started from the US and it was in Singapore. You can have just as much performance, and you can even make a case for higher performance that when you're running virtually, remotely, and hybrid. But you have to just really shift your mindset that it is doable, and that everything that you were getting before in the office is doable. But you have to really look at and reevaluate everything that you are doing to that new medium and that new formula. And again, if you see the link in the description, if you want training on this next week, I'm doing a course on exactly this. So that is the number one thing. Again, we're going old school today, leading virtual teams. The number one thing is mindset. The number 2 thing, and I'm shifting all around here, so I'm going to write it down, is team well-being and their health. Because I'll tell you what, right now, the second component is team well-being. Because I did a wide-ranging study at the end of last year, my team and I, on the state of the workforce, and people are burning out. Everybody I talk to is tired. And if you are not addressing your team on the mental and emotional aspects, you're going to run into issues, because you need to have your team be performing at a high level. And they've went through all this change and all this fear and all this everything else in the last 12 months. There's a lot of things you need to be doing as a leader and a manager. Your company and you as a leader need to be doing to support them on that arena. And if you're not doing it, people are going to start burning out. You may be seeing signs of this already. People are starting to withdraw. People may be taking time off with without giving you much notice. Like, oh my gosh, I just need a day off. It's very reactionary, and they're getting too far down the hole. So and again, if you may know, I have a master's in psychology and a neuroscience certificate. So there's a lot of things that I can teach you in a very short period of time to give you the tools and skills you need to support your team from the mental and emotional area. And so we really need you to be stepping up as a leader and taking the next step to support your team that way. The three things for leading successful, high-performing virtual teams are virtual meetings. Virtual meetings is number 3. And yes, those are these Zoom meetings and these Microsoft Team meetings and everything else. You need to learn tools and skills to get engagement out of these virtual meetings, get people talking, to get people's camera on. Should I tell everybody that their camera should be on, or should I not tell everybody camera should be on? People seem to be not engaged. Our meetings are flat. Our meetings are boring. I get this over and over and over. Well, that's because you don't know the virtual meeting best practices. So you really need to learn them. And if you do want to join my training starting next week, and if you just joined, there's a link in the descriptions. I'm giving people 75% off to go through the pre-release program. I have Jackie Berry coming in for a special section. So each one of these points is going to be a module in my training next week. And actually, I'm having a bonus training where Jackie Berry, who's an expert in virtual meeting icebreakers and engagement, is going to come in and do a special session with us next week. So sign up if you haven't signed up already, because there's so many little tools and tricks. When you start to really get clear about your boundaries in virtual meetings, you do these icebreakers and these communication starters. It really gets people engaged in your whole meeting. And can you just imagine, think of all the meetings that you've been on this last week and all the meetings that you have today. Maybe they're meetings you're attending, or maybe they're meetings you're running. Imagine if you had that special sauce to really get people engaged, having fun in these meetings, even looking forward to them. Yes, it's possible. And how much better your team would be performing if you could do that. That's what you're going to learn. Number 4 is, I'm going to just put accountability and motivation. But what I really have for number 4 is accountability and motivation. Boy, this is tougher than it looks. So I have culture, engagement, accountability, and motivation. Everybody has a culture. And when people are in an office, oftentimes they find it easier to reinforce that culture, reinforce the values, reinforce what everything's all about. But now that you are remote, how do you reinforce the culture and the values in a remote or a hybrid team? That's very important. How do you get your people engaged? How do you get people back on board, back focused on what they should be focused on, back prioritizing? That's really what we got to get. And then there's the accountability. How do you hold people accountable, again, without being a jerk, without coming down hard on them? How do you hold people accountable? By raising them up and empowering them. That's a real skill that I teach. And how do you get motivation and inspiration? And that is the 4th pillar of a high-performing virtual team. And number 5 is, I'm going to write this, and I'm going to tell you what I'm writing: change and agility. And we're also going to call this resilience. Here are the 5 components of a virtual team. I got my little thing, and hey, there we go. Leading virtual teams: mindset, team well-being, virtual meetings, accountability, motivation, and change and agility / resilience. Again, you need to build your team from the ground up to be change enablers. And you have to make them agile teams. And I'm not talking about like just the programming teams where we have agile programming. I'm talking about a resilient team, because I know the last year has been tough, but I don't think this is over. I think there's going to be more issues over the next year that's going to really make that all of our teams are going to have to make sure that they are change enabled. And so if your team has really struggled with the change this last year, and maybe you come out of a traditionally change resistant organization, whether that's sometimes healthcare, sometimes education, sometimes some of the more established industries, maybe bank or financial, fintech, some of the older, larger companies. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, we really have to create change. And if people are resisting change, we have to change the mindset. We have to change how they work with things, how they work together, how they communicate. And so that's resilience. So we want to build this resilience and this change and agility into the DNA of our team. And there's no magic pill. I mean, there's nothing you're going to be able to do in the next 24 to 48 hours to massively change the culture, but you need to start working on it now, and you need to start giving that to people, both for their mental and emotional standpoint, as well as your business team performance. And again, if what I said is interesting here, next week, and if people probably know, you can see my book right over there, and that is leading in the next. This is what I wrote in December of last year, a guide to building an engaged, resilient, and agile workforce, and it's been killing it and out there because there's a real need for this. And so again, if you are interested in these 5 things, these 5 pillars of a high performance virtual team, next week I am teaching a course that's going to be live and recorded, and then it's going to be packaged up and sold. And I'm selling this course for $197. But if you want to be on the pre-release course, you can get this for $47, which means you're going to be invited to the live courses next week. And whether you can make the next courses or not, you will have access to the workbooks and the recordings, because the recordings is actually what I'm selling as the course. You're going to have access to them for just $47, because I want some people to run through the course so that I can teach it live, and there's a little bit of that energy. And so sign up for the course now. Join next week if you can join the courses, and if you do sign up for the pre-release course, the one thing that I ask you is to give me some honest feedback on things, and if you enjoy it, and it's stuff that I've been teaching companies like Uber and Microsoft and Salesforce for a while now, so it's my tried and true content, is that you do give a testimonial. So for a 75% discount and access to this amazing content, I do ask for a testimonial, if you enjoy it, because I really want to add value out there. But if you've read my book, if you're in my group, you'll know some of the things that I'm about here. And most of the people watching this have a relationship with me. So anyway, everybody, I'm always there. If you're not in my group right now, the leadership group on Facebook, the Next Normal Leadership Group, I do videos like this all the time. So join it. If this is interesting to you, sign up for the course right now. And again, this is a tough time for leaders out there. So make sure you have the skills, make sure you have the training, so that you can be the leader that your team needs right now. All right, Michael here. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Drop any notes here, and I'll see you in the course next week.